Yes, so for this field study, I attended the Woodcrest Chapel in Jefferson City, Missouri. Um, this is a church. I've actually went to this church before, probably around 4 or 5 years ago, but they've since moved. And two of my coworkers currently go to the church, and they always tell me that I should come check it out. So I decided to check it out. Um, it kind of fits underneath when I was looking at the criteria for um the field work this week. I kind of looked at the charismatic portion of it. I mean, my church kind of falls under the charismatic thing, but it doesn't. So I thought Woodcrest would be an interesting place to go. Plus, the Holy Spirit kind of directed me to go that way. So that's kind of what I did. So this is a predominantly white church. Um, I found it interesting when I first walked in that there were greeters. There was like 6 greeters when I walked through the doors. So I didn't feel like out of place. I didn't feel like I didn't know where to go. So as soon as I walked through the door, there were 2 greeters there telling me, "Hey, welcome to see you." They knew that I was a visitor, and they, directed me to the welcome station where I talked to the lady who was very nice. Her name was Veronica, and she just kind of told me about the church and told me about there's some coffee and lemonade and things like that. So I'm used to just walking into the service with nobody there, because normally I'm like one of the first, people always at church. So at my regular worship center. So when I walked in there, it was already filled with people who were drinking coffee. It was almost like, it almost reminded me of like a Panera experience when I walked through there. It was almost like the foyer atmosphere was almost like a Panera Bread place where people were drinking coffee and talking. And of course, the worship center was in the back. So rather than kind of mingle with people, I just went and sat in the sanctuary and waited for the service to start. When I went into the sanctuary, it was like really, if you've ever been in these 21st century type churches where the decor is really upbeat and urban, and they have the stadium, kind of the stadium style seats and the backdrops and all that good stuff. So it was kind of set up like that. Um, Once again, this was a white church, well, a Caucasian church. So a lot of the worship was guitars, and the worship was not quite what I was used to. So, but at the same time, I could still feel the presence of God in there. And that's kind of the things that I've been looking for with these field studies is the presence of God in this church? Is the presence of God, is the presence of God there during these worship experiences? So I definitely did, feel that during worship. Um, I was kind of thrown off by the message a little bit. Actually, the pastor, he preached about spiritual warfare on Mother's Day, which I thought was very interesting. Um, and two, um, this was a satellite church. The actual church was in Columbia, Missouri, a town that's about 30 minutes east of Jefferson City. So the pastor, we watched a video of the pastor preaching to us. Now, this was something that was a little, off to me, because it seemed like, it was almost, I had the feeling like I was going to the movies to see the word being preached to me. But once I got past that little hiccup and was able to hear the message that this pastor was giving about spiritual warfare, it was great. It was like just really great stuff. A lot of the questions I had about the doctrine of the church was really answered, when I was hearing this guy preach about, spiritual warfare. So overall, the service was really good. It lasted only about an hour, so I'm not used to that. And then we were, out of there relatively quickly. So my experience at Woodcrest was definitely interesting one. Um, I could definitely see myself going to a church like that. I would have to get used to the music, but it's a very interesting place.